In modern Indian politics and law, the concept of the Lakshmana Rekha defines a strict constitutional or ethical limit that must never be crossed. When Lok Sabha Speaker Somnath Chatterjee defined the absolute jurisdictional limits of the Indian judiciary, he invoked this term to warn against the overstepping of authority. The phrase originates far from the courtroom, tracing back to the ancient Dandakaranya forest in the epic Ramayana. In later versions of the story, Prince Lakshmana draws a physical line in the dirt around a forest cottage. This boundary creates a zone of safety for his sister-in-law, Sita, intended to repel the demon king Ravana while the prince is away. The line offers an absolute guarantee of physical protection. However, the narrative shifts when an invisible, competing duty forces Sita to choose between her safety and her character. Sita deliberately steps over the line, resulting in her immediate abduction by Ravana. While often viewed as a moment of tragic naivete, the Radhe Shyam Ramayana details a specific ethical calculation behind the act. Ravana approaches disguised as a mendicant seeking alms, and he insists that charity cannot be accepted across a barrier. This triggers the cultural mandate of Atithi Devo Bhava, the duty to treat a guest as God himself. Sita finds herself caught between two conflicting boundaries. The physical line ensures her personal preservation, but the cultural line requires her to fulfill a moral obligation to a guest. The Ramayana treats ethics as a landscape of intersecting duties known as dharma. Rather than simple binaries of good and evil, the text presents a web of specific obligations tied to an individual's role. These roles are clearly defined. A king follows Raja Dharma, a son follows Putra Dharma, and a wife follows Stri Dharma. These duties frequently collide, requiring sacrifices that the characters cannot avoid. King Dasharatha serves as the narrative's first major case study in this friction. Dasharatha must balance his love for his son Rama against a previous absolute promise to honor two boons for his wife, Kaikeyi. When she demands Rama's exile, the king is forced to choose between his family and his word. The Ayodhya Kanda records the king's final royal decree. He chooses to exile his son, prioritizing the integrity of the throne over his own paternal desires. In this era, a king's word was considered the foundation of social and cosmic order. Violating a promise would mathematically destabilize the state, meaning Raja Dharma had to override personal affection. Dasharatha eventually dies from the grief of this decision. This outcome demonstrates that following Dharma often requires the preservation of moral order at the direct expense of the self. The rigidity of the city laws changes when the narrative moves into the Dandakaranya forest. In this untamed environment, the boundaries of conduct become fluid. During his exile, Rama kills the Monkey King Vali from a position of concealment. As Vali lies dying, he questions the morality of a prince using a sneak attack rather than a direct confrontation. Rama argues that he is applying the civilized laws of Ayodhya to the survival-based realm of the forest. He frames the killing as a punishment for Vali's crimes against his own brother. This introduces the concept of ethical cultural relativism. It suggests that a crossed line is not a fixed point, but something that shifts based on the physical or cultural landscape. Boundaries of duty warp as environments change. Navigating these overlapping rules is the central challenge for every character in the epic. Returning to the forest cottage, Sita's decision at the Lakshmana Rekha reflects this same navigation of overlapping duties. Ravana leveraged the internal architecture of Sita's moral world. By appearing as a mendicant, he turned her commitment to guest duty into the very mechanism of her abduction. Sita's choice, Dasharatha's exile of his son, and Rama's forest judgments all share a common theme: the friction caused by competing moral obligations. The narrative lingers on these moments of decision, focusing on the internal struggle of the actors as they try to determine which duty takes precedence. Boundary lines define our priorities at the moment two rights collide. Stepping over the Lakshmana Rekha reveals what an individual is willing to lose in order to fulfill a higher obligation.